Winning. Isn't that what really matters with sports? Finding a winner?
Possibly.
You're a winner.
So how does winning impact what to look for in collectibles? We're going to get into that, but before we do, guys, please like the video, follow us, subscribe. Go ahead in the comments and tell us what you want us to talk about. But today, we're talking about winning and how it impacts collecting. And Carlo, you always pick the winners, man, so we're going with you first.
Here we go.
How does winning impact collecting for you?
Does winning matter?
Or that?
The answer is it varies, right? It varies. So in baseball, it seems to not matter. Stats seem to matter more, I feel. In basketball, sure, it matters. In football, it matters. I mean, Jordan and Brady are the most collectible, I think, because of their championships. In baseball, I'm sure we'll get into it, Mike Trout. He never played a playoff game. To me, it depends.
Okay. What about F1?
I mean, dude, of course, man. Verstappen, Lewis, Hamilton, man. Of course winning matters.
But for baseball,
Groups elaborate.
But for baseball, what do you mean by that, though? So you're saying that does not matter in baseball?
I don't think it matters as much in baseball.
I agree with that.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I think it matters the least amount in baseball as far as values go in winning.
There's one player, though. There's one player that had he got drafted number 1 overall instead of number 6 and ended up on the Houston Astros and never won anything, a man named Derek Jeter, would he be as collectible?
If he didn't win as much.
Yeah, let's say he went number 1 to the Astros where Phil Nevin went.
I think it actually comes down to the market, though, too, where I think if you look at a place like New York, they put so much emphasis on win or bust, whereas like a place like Anaheim, the Angels or whoever out there, you don't really have a winning culture necessarily. Like, people don't expect the Angels to win. Like, it's just never been that way, really, or at least for a long time.
2002.
A long time. So whereas I feel like the Yankees, it's every year is win or bust. And Jeter was one of those people who delivered on that more so than anybody. So I think associating him in that market with how much he won, that's why his prices are so high, because he was clutch in those moments to deliver the big titles for a team that almost demanded it of their players. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Whereas even though baseball, as a single person, you have less impact on a team than any other sport. Whereas like a quarterback, like look at Joe Burrow, his market really wasn't that strong until he took a team to the Super Bowl. Then people went nuts and said, okay, this guy has the ability to be a winner because he can take his team there. You can almost carry a team. Baseball, you're only up 4 times a game, or you can only make a couple good plays in the field. So you can't carry a team necessarily. So I think that's why it varies as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with the baseball comment. Obviously, Ted Williams, never on a winner there except for 49, but they didn't win. They got there. We've seen plenty of guys. Ernie Banks, all-time Hall of Fame great MVP on last place teams. Right. We see that. Have we ever really seen MVPs on losing teams in other sports that you guys can think of right now? I mean, usually you look at the top 2-3 teams, and that's where they're like, okay, we're picking our MVP there. I just don't really see a lot of instances where the MVP in other sports is on a team that's not at least a playoff contending team or something like that. In baseball, it really is. You're playing right field. You might get no hits to you all day. You get up 4 times, you go deep twice, and you still get smoked. Nolan Ryan, great example. Right. When he was playing for the Astros, guy was lights out, but he couldn't even, win a Cy Young award because the team was horrible. He had no run support, So, I mean, but it's Nolan Ryan.
But I look at value. Let's go to basketball. If Barkley or Karl Malone, Stockton, Drexler, if any of those guys are able to beat Jordan, their values would be significantly higher. So I think them not winning directly impacts their cards kind of staying at a certain plateau.
Because you can carry a team more in basketball.
Yeah,
you can have one guy.
I agree.
Like, a LeBron or a Michael Jordan or whoever that player is who can literally take a mediocre team at best to a championship game because you can drag them there. Whereas like on other sports, you can't necessarily do that. I think going back to football, even look at like an all-time great like Dan Marino. I mean, his market is almost non-existent, but he's one of the all-time greatest quarterbacks. It's just he never won. So he never won that big game that put him over that hump to say, he's that tier, I think.
You're right. I mean, football and basketball, one guy can impact the game like immensely. So obviously there's a direct correlation, whereas we've said in baseball here, it's not carried by one guy. So
I think Ryan hit a good point, though. Maybe the biggest point of all is the market. that the guys are playing in. Now, I see in basketball, it doesn't always matter. You know, you see some guys coming up, the number one picks, like no matter where they play. Look at LeBron in Cleveland, right? Like, guy was huge. In Cleveland market was not necessarily. In baseball, you know, I mean, you play with the Yankees, your value goes up. Look at Stanton, for example. You know, when he was on Miami, you couldn't sell his cards. Nobody cared. And he was a two-time MVP, top two player. He was a reigning MVP. As soon as the Yanks signed him, all of a sudden, here comes this guy. Now he's on the map, you know, like now he's actually getting real value. And you start to see that, I mean, with some of the prospecting cards as well, you know, you see the prices for these things are just outrageous. And these guys haven't won or played anything. But I think market is big. You know, a lot of those prospects are on big, you know, big marketable teams.
Dave, does winning impact value?
You know, yes, it's going to impact the value. Winning is absolutely going to increase the value. If any of these players in baseball that we're talking about won more World Series, I mean, Barry Bonds is a perfect example, right? Had Barry won that World Series in 2002 when the Anaheim Angels, or of California, whatever they were called back then, won, maybe that changes Bonds' value. I think we've seen Bonds, you know, climbing of late, which is kind of weird. In baseball, you start to see a lot of these late climbs way after the fact.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, winning 100% impacts value. Look at some of these other sports. Tennis, you have no, you know, you're not going to have value unless you're winning, you know, winning majors, or you're just a beautiful, you know, female that people love to collect, like Anna Kournikova was in tough, who didn't win a lot. Golf,
How you doing?
There you go. Golf, yeah, you have to win. You know, nobody even notices you until you start putting a few.
Oh, those are single sports, so you know you're out there on an island. So if
even hockey though, I mean, same thing. You know, hockey.
That's true too.
There's only maybe
Gretzky.
5 or 6 superstars that people really collect in terms of hockey, and the only guys that all of a sudden become a big time market is if they win a Stanley Cup or whatever, like Stamkos or whoever. All
what
of a
about
sudden,
McDavid? What about McDavid if he doesn't win?
he's going. I know.
He'll never reach the Gretzky level. Then I mean,
I think Crosby took that leap because he delivered a bunch of Stanley Cups, right? So I think that's where, I mean, it definitely varies sport to sport. I think winning definitely matters. You know, it never can hurt your value. Obviously, it's only going to help your value. But I think for some sports where you can't carry a team on your back, it's not going to affect the value as much.
So basketball, football matters more than baseball.
Yeah.
Are we in agreement?
Okay.
I agree.
Of course.
I agree.
I'm in agreement.
All right, Dave, wrap us up, man.
That's it. Guys, that's all we have for today. Again, subscribe for more of this unbelievably exciting conversations. Subscribe, hit some things in the comments. We'll see you guys next week.